All right, welcome back to the deep dive. Today we're diving into something, well, it might seem kind of out there at first, the link between your gut, your digestive system, and some pretty serious brain stuff, like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's.
Yeah, you'd think those two are worlds apart, right? But the more we learn, the more we see they're way more connected than anyone thought.
Exactly. And we've got a ton of research to dig into today. Articles, studies, all focused on this gut-brain connection, particularly how these tiny things called probiotics might hold some real power when it comes to keeping our brains healthy.
And maybe even helping to manage or, fingers crossed, slow down those scary neurodegenerative diseases, right?
That's the hope, at least.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to try to figure out today. To break down this research, no jargon, just clear insights for everyone listening. So first things first, what exactly are these neurodegenerative diseases?
Well, the simplest way to put it is they're like a slow breakdown of your brain cells, your neurons. These cells basically lose their structure, they can't communicate properly, can't do their jobs, and eventually, well, they die off.
And that affects, like, everything the brain does, I imagine.
Absolutely. We're talking about some big hitters here. Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, ALS. The impact on people is just immense. Memory loss, problems with movement, even speaking and coordinating simple actions become a struggle.
And these are becoming more and more common, aren't they?
Sadly, yeah, it's a growing global issue. Like, Alzheimer's alone makes up a huge chunk of all dementia cases, something like 60 to 70%. And Parkinson's, well, that's predicted to double in the next 20 years or so. It's a lot, and that doesn't even factor in the emotional toll on families, the caregiving. It's a whole other layer.
A huge burden all around. So what causes these diseases in the first place? It seems like there's still a lot we don't know.
Yeah, there's no single answer, unfortunately. It's usually a bunch of factors at play. Genetics definitely predispose some people. You inherit those vulnerabilities. In Alzheimer's, it's thought that genes might be responsible for like anywhere from 56 to 79% of the risk.
Wow, that's a pretty big range, though.
It is, and that's because it's not just our DNA. The environment matters too. Exposure to toxins like heavy metals, lead, arsenic, that kind of stuff, they mess with brain cells on a deep level.
Like literally poisoning the brain.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Research suggests they can damage how genes are expressed, how cells get rid of waste, how they produce energy. Plus, there's something called oxidative stress, which these toxins can really ramp up, and that's basically rusting of the brain cells.
So it's like a double whammy, the toxins themselves and this oxidative stress.
Right. Then on top of that, you've got lifestyle factors. If you're eating poorly, not exercising, constantly stressed out, all that weakens the brain, makes it more vulnerable.
So it's like setting the stage for these diseases to take hold, kind of stacking the odds against your brain.
Unfortunately, yeah. And then getting a diagnosis early on, that's another whole challenge.
I can imagine. With those early symptoms being so subtle, could be anything, right?
Exactly. Memory lapses, who hasn't had those? It could be normal aging, stress, a million things besides Alzheimer's. That makes diagnosis tricky. Lots of overlap with other conditions.
And even the tests we have, they're not perfect, are they?
Nope. Scans can show changes in the brain, but they're not always specific to these diseases. Blood tests, genetic screenings, they can offer clues, but not the whole picture. It often comes down to the doctor's assessment, the patient's history, which isn't always clear-cut.
Sounds like a lot of uncertainty for those going through it.
Definitely. So we've talked about the bad news, but there is some exciting research happening, especially with probiotics and Alzheimer's. Have you heard much about this?
Yeah, it's fascinating stuff. Seems like those little gut bugs might be more powerful than we thought.
Right. There was this study in Nutrients done by Taiwanese researchers looking at folks who already had Alzheimer's. They wanted to see if specific probiotics could actually improve brain function and reduce those Alzheimer's markers.
So like actually reverse some of the damage.
Yeah. Not reverse necessarily, but improve things, potentially slow it down. So they took 60 older adults, split them into two groups. One got a daily dose of probiotics in a milk drink for 12 weeks. The other got a placebo.
Milk drink, interesting. Okay, so what happened? Did the probiotics make a difference?
They did. The probiotic group showed significant improvement in their cognitive scores, specifically on a test called the MMSE. Meanwhile, the placebo group, their scores actually went down over those 12 weeks.
That's huge. So the probiotics were actively helping while the others were declining. And this was in people with a diagnosis already, right?
Yep. Plus, the probiotic group had lower inflammation markers, which is important because inflammation is a big part of Alzheimer's. The researchers even mentioned the robust and effective antioxidant capabilities of these particular probiotics.
So fighting inflammation and improving brain function. It's pretty remarkable, especially seeing those changes in just 12 weeks. How are these probiotics actually working their magic? That's where the gut-brain axis comes in, right?
Exactly. It's like the super highway of communication between the gut and the brain. They're constantly sending signals back and forth, influencing each other in ways we're just starting to understand.
And probiotics play a role in that communication.
Big time. By promoting a healthy balance of bacteria in the gut, they basically create a better environment for those signals to flow. Less inflammation, less oxidative stress, all things that can harm the brain in Alzheimer's.
And we often hear about these short-chain fatty acids, SCFAs. What's their role?
SCFAs, those are the rock stars. They're produced by the good bacteria in our gut when they break down fiber, and guess what? They can actually act as fuel for our brain cells.
Brain food, literally.
Yep. Plus, they help reduce inflammation throughout the body, including the brain. The study even noted an increase in a specific type of good bacteria, lactobacillus, in the probiotic group, likely leading to more SCFAs.
That's amazing. So it's not just about adding any bacteria. It's about cultivating the right kind. And this all happened in 12 weeks. That's pretty fast, right?
Oh, it is. It shows how responsive our gut and brain can be to these changes. Now, let's dive a little deeper into how these probiotics might be protecting against neurodegenerative diseases in general.
Okay, so we know they create a better gut environment. But how does that actually translate to a healthier brain?
Well, for one, they help reduce something called lipopolysaccharides, or LPS. These are basically inflammatory molecules released by certain bad bacteria.
So more bad bacteria, more inflammation.
Right. Probiotics help keep those bad guys in check, which means less LPS floating around, less inflammation in the gut, and less chance of that inflammation reaching the brain.
Makes sense. Like calming the storm before it reaches the shore.
Good analogy. Another thing probiotics do is strengthen the gut barrier itself. Think of it like a wall lining your intestines. When it's weak, things can leak through, including inflammatory molecules. Probiotics help seal up those leaks.
So less chance of those troublemakers reaching the brain.
Exactly. Plus, they influence neurotransmitters, those chemical messengers in the brain that affect mood and cognition. Probiotics might boost levels of dopamine and GABA, which are crucial for a healthy brain.
So it's like a three-pronged attack. Less inflammation, a stronger gut barrier, and more of the good chemicals the brain needs. Pretty impressive for such tiny organisms.
It really is. Now, let's talk about what all this means for you, for everyone listening. How can we use this knowledge to support our own brain health?
Yeah, let's get practical. What can we actually do?
Well, remember, the gut microbiome is like a second brain, so we need to treat it right. A study in Scientific Reports actually pinpointed certain gut bacteria linked to a higher risk of Alzheimer's.
So specific types of bacteria matter, not just having good bacteria in general.
Exactly. They found some bad actors like Collinsella, Lachnospora, Veillonella. Those were linked to increased risk. But they also found good ones like Eubacterium notatum and Eisenbergilla.
Okay, so good and bad guys. What makes those good ones so good?
Well, they're big producers of SCFAs, especially butyrate. Remember, that's brain fuel, and it helps protect the gut lining. Butyrate even stimulates the production of mucin, which forms a protective layer in the gut, like a shield against bad bacteria.
Got it. Strong defense is key. Now, there's also this Akkermansia mucinifera, right? Seems like that one's getting a lot of buzz.
Akkermansia, that's a star player. It produces SCFAs too, and studies consistently show that people with Alzheimer's tend to have less of it.
Interesting. So boosting Akkermansia could be a good strategy for brain health.
Exactly, and there are a few ways to do that. First, through diet. Cooked prebiotic-rich veggies, plenty of fiber, those are Akkermansia's favorite foods.
So eat your veggies, got it.
And there are supplements too, high-quality ones specifically designed to boost those levels. At the same time, cut back on processed foods, unhealthy fats. Those can hinder Akkermansia growth.
So fuel the good, starve the bad, makes sense. What else can we do?
Boost those SCFAs. Fermented foods like sauerkraut and kimchi, those are great. Also, resistant starches found in things like cooled cooked potatoes, slightly green bananas. Think of them as prebiotics, feeding the good bacteria that produce butyrate.
I'm sensing a theme here. Food is powerful.
It really is. Another important thing is managing your carb intake. General guidelines recommend at least 250 grams of targeted carbs daily, but adjust that based on your activity level to optimize Akkermansia and SCFA production.
Okay, so it's not one size fits all. Got to personalize it. What's our next strategy?
Supporting that gut-brain connection directly by protecting the gut barrier. This means ditching inflammatory foods, those processed culprits, and again, boosting Akkermansia.
Always back to Akkermansia, huh?
A key player.
Yeah.
And finally, we got to tackle systemic inflammation. Promote a diverse gut microbiome, lots of different good bacteria, with a focus on increasing Akkermansia.
Okay, diversity is good.
Right, so limit vegetable oils, other pro-inflammatory fats, and consider monitoring your C-reactive protein levels. That's a marker of inflammation.
So lots we can do just through diet and lifestyle. That's encouraging. But we also have some information on other Alzheimer's prevention strategies beyond just the gut. What are the highlights there?
Yeah, so even though the gut-brain connection is huge EE, there are other things to keep in mind. One suggestion is avoiding gluten and casein, found in wheat and most dairy.
Interesting. Why those specifically?
Gluten, for one, seems to mess with the blood-brain barrier, which is supposed to protect the brain from harmful stuff. When it's weakened, things can leak through, potentially increasing the risk of Alzheimer's.
So it's not just about a leaky gut, it's a leaky brain barrier too.
Exactly. And this leaky barrier idea is being linked to other brain issues too, like Parkinson's, even anxiety and depression.
Wow, it's a whole other layer of complexity.
It is. Another recommendation is making sure you're getting enough omega-3 fats, specifically EPA and DHA. Those are found in fatty fish, and they help protect brain cells from damage.
Brain-boosting fats, got it.
Just remember, moderation is key. They're PUFAs, so don't overdo it. Now, vitamin D is also important. Studies show a link between low vitamin D and poorer cognitive function in Alzheimer's.
So get some sunshine from...
Safely. Aim for blood levels between 60 and 80 nanograms per milliliter and be smart about sun exposure. Avoid the midday sun and be mindful of what you put on your skin. Some things, like vegetable oils, can oxidize in sunlight and actually do more harm than good.
Good point. Sun is good, but we got to be smart about it.
Absolutely. And there are other options for protecting your skin too, like astaxanthin, low-dose aspirin, molecular hydrogen, niacinamide cream.
Yeah.
Lots to explore there.
Wow, so many options. What else do we have?
Well, keeping your fasting insulin levels low is important. High insulin is linked to faster brain aging, so that's a no-go.
Okay, so watch the sugar intake.
Yep. And eat your folate, the natural kind, from veggies, not just supplements. Folate is thought to protect against Alzheimer's.
Another win for veggies. What about toxins? Anything else besides those heavy metals we talked about?
Yes, mercury and aluminum are big ones. Dental amalgams, those silver fillings, can be a source of mercury, so talk to a biological dentist about safe removal if you have those. Also, watch out for aluminum in antiperspirants and non-stick cookware.
Okay, so hidden toxins, got to be mindful. Anything else?
Iron levels. If they're high, consider donating blood. Too much iron can actually increase oxidative stress in the brain.
Who knew? Okay, so diet, toxins, what else can we control?
Exercise. Regular physical activity improves blood flow to the brain and helps it stay flexible, adaptable. And don't forget those antioxidant-rich foods like blueberries. Those are your brain's best friends.
Blueberries for the win.
And keep your brain active, challenge it, learn a new skill, a musical instrument, anything that keeps those neurons firing.
Use it or lose it. Rest.
Exactly. And finally, be cautious with certain medications like anticholinergics and statins. They can have negative effects on the brain, so talk to your doctor about potential risks and alternatives.
Okay, so a lot to consider, but it's empowering to know we have some control over our brain health.
I agree. It's all about making informed choices.
So after this deep dive, what's the main takeaway for our listeners?
It's that connection between the gut and the brain. It's real, it's powerful, and it might just hold the key to preventing and managing these challenging brain diseases. Probiotics, a healthy gut microbiome, those could be game changers.
And the research is really exciting. Probiotics as a non-invasive way to support brain health, that's huge.
Definitely. It opens up a whole new avenue for prevention and treatment.
So as you think about your own gut and brain, here's something to consider. What small changes can you make today to support your long-term cognitive health? The power is in your hands. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.